Now available in paperback, John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Pick up your copy of John Haynes at Death's Door at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. A week after letting Henry Cavill know that he would not be reprising his role as Superman, James Gunn, Peter Safran, and I believe David Zaslav gave Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson his walking papers. Now, yesterday, your Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was told that your Warner Brothers would not be moving forward with a sequel to Black Adam. And I believe that your Warner Brothers isn't going ahead with a sequel to Black Adam because the film underperformed. I believe that your Warner Brothers isn't going ahead with a sequel to Black Adam because they don't want a black man to be the face of the new direction for their new DC cinematic universe. And that's the only reason I believe that your Warner Brothers went out of its way to go out here and unceremoniously and ignominiously send your Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson out of the DC cinematic universe. What they basically wanted to do was tear down all of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's efforts to take the DC cinematic universe in a new direction because it really possibly burned up your James Gunn, your Peter Safran, and your David Zaslav about the whole idea of a black man going out here and setting a course for your DC cinematic universe. And I believe that, again, they were very angry about the idea of what your Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson set up in Black Adam when he went out here and gave your Henry Cavill that cameo as Superman, which was basically starting to lay a new direction for the DC cinematic universe and was going out here and building up that fan anticipation. And because these white men were upset about a black man going out here and setting a course for the DC cinematic universe, what they wanted to do was go out here and tear down all of that work that black man built because they were angry at the idea that a black man could do a better job than they did. Because when you look at that cameo by Henry Cavill, it was building up a lot of fan anticipation and building up momentum, but these racists could not stand the idea of a black man going out here and setting up a better idea for a DC cinematic universe than all of the work of all of these white men like a Zack Snyder, who basically gave us the jumbled mess that was a DC extended universe. So what they wanted to do, because they were angry about that black man going out here and building up that DC cinematic universe, was tear it down and then look to tear down that black man as well. And again, this is a major wake-up call, as I see it, for your Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who basically tries to play like he's on the Samoan side. What your Warner Brothers basically showed was they didn't want the help of a black man, and they didn't want the help of a black man because they wanted to be the ones who controlled the DC cinematic universe, and they wanted to be the ones who set the direction and the tone, even though Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was basically setting them up for success. That your Warner Brothers would rather go out here and stay on the road of white supremacy because they wanted to have their DC cinematic universe without ever going out here. And again, your Henry Cavill was a casualty of that because they just couldn't stand the idea of a black man going out here and setting them up for success. No, they wanted to have all the credit because I believe it burns up a lot of these people at Warner Brothers that the entire superhero movie genre was basically saved by another black man, Wesley Snipes, because it was those white guys like Joel Schumacher who basically destroyed the superhero movie genre with garbage like Batman and Robin in 1997. And if it wasn't for a black man, Wesley Snipes, in 1998, we would not have any superhero movies right now, because it was Blade that basically revived the entire genre. And that's what Dwayne Johnson was trying to help do with Black Adam. He was trying to help get things back on track at DC, but DC wants to go out here and throw him out. And when they throw him out, what they showed me is that, again, this was not about trying to get the DC cinematic universe on track. No, this was about racists trying to go out here and get control over the superhero movie genre and make it an institution for white males. And again, they didn't want Henry Cavill because this was a male that was recruited by a black male. So they want to go out here and tell the story, oh, we're going to do another Superman movie set when he was younger. And again, we've already had that with Superboy in 1988. And we had it with Smallville in, I think, about 2002. And again, we're in a place where there's superhero movie fatigue. But this was not about going out here and making a new DC cinematic universe fresh. It was about making the DC cinematic universe white. And it was all about trying to make Dwayne Johnson the bad guy. And I really do not see your Dwayne Johnson as the bad guy. I see him as a guy who has over 20 plus years of experience doing action movies and a guy who has a background in being a part of multiple successful movies, including Fast and Furious, Hobbs and Shaw, and many other movies like Jungle Cruise, and including comedies. Here is a man who has had tremendous success, and what instead of going out here and working with that man who has brought you success, what your Warner Brothers wants to do is try to spin Dwayne Johnson as the bad guy, and that really shows me how nothing has changed as related to your Warner Brothers, even though they have a new CEO, your David Zaslav, even though they have two new people running DC Studios, we still have the same anti-black racism at this studio. And what they're looking to do is go out here and make Dwayne Johnson the bad guy, the same way they made Ray Fisher the bad guy, as related to the reason why the original DC cinematic universe failed. No, the reason why the original DC cinematic universe failed was the same reason why the New 52 wound up failing. It was because many of the people who were working at DC Comics and on films in the DC cinematic universe, they wanted to go in a dark and dreary and depressing direction, and that dark, dreary, depressing direction alienated many of the longtime DC fans like myself, who were used to the hopeful and optimistic characters. No, they wanted to go in that new direction, and they went out here and alienated all of those fans. And now what they want to do is try to make Dwayne Johnson the scapegoat for the underperformance of Black Adam. No, you cannot blame Dwayne Johnson for the failure of Black Adam, because as I see it, he put the most effort into this film as an actor. He put the most effort into it as a producer, and he set your Warner Brothers up for success with that Henry Cavill cameo. He was setting them up so that they could go out here and be able to gain some sort of anticipation from the fans and build some sort of momentum into the next film. But your Warner Brothers, at the end of the day, whether it's owned by Discovery or its own separate company, is its own worst enemy. And it's its own worst enemy because even though your Dwayne Johnson tried to help them try to move things forward, your Warner Brothers still wants to remain in the same dysfunctional state. And that's why I say that at this point, I have washed my hands with Warner Brothers and DC properties, because it looks like to me the problem isn't a Dwayne Johnson, the problem isn't a Henry Cavill, the problem isn't a Gal Gadot. No, the problem is Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers is a dysfunctional institution, and everything Ray Fisher talked about as related to that dysfunction is being presented to us in the way that Dwayne Johnson was unceremoniously fired from Warner Brothers as related to any more Black Adam projects. It shows me that your Warner Brothers is a dysfunctional institution, because that while you go out here and you cancel the Cyborg movie from Ray Fisher and the Black Adam project and try to paint both Ray Fisher and your Dwayne Johnson as bad guys, meanwhile, you've got your Ezra Miller, who was basically allegedly committing just heinous crimes, and you're trying to find every way possible to go out here and launch this Flash movie, which basically is a $200 million liability at this point, and you want to go back and bring back Amber Heard to Aquaman, but you want to tell me Dwayne Johnson is the bad guy. But when I look at every action that Dwayne Johnson took as related to Black Adam, he basically was trying to, again, get this train back on track, trying to get DC's cinematic universe in a good direction. But because of the egos of your James Gunn, Peter Safran, and David Zaslav, they decided, no, we're going to pull the plug on your Dwayne Johnson because we can't stand the idea of a black man possibly being the architect to take us from a road to mediocrity to a road to somewhat success. That's the thing that bruises the ego of many of those white men over at Warner Brothers, and it's that racism that has them trying to make Dwayne Johnson into a bad guy, and has many in fandom going out here, oh, Dwayne Johnson is the bad guy. No, Dwayne Johnson is not the bad guy. And if you have been following Warner Brothers as long as I have for the last 30 years, you'll see that Warner Brothers white executives are part of the problem, because these are the same executives who went out here and totally derailed their own previous superhero franchise by firing Tim Burton and replacing him with Joel Schumacher, which basically almost ended the entire superhero movie genre. And it took a black man, Wesley Snipes, to get it back on track and basically give us the successes we had with the 2002 Spider-Man, the 2000 X-Men, the Hulk, Daredevil, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. All of that was due to one black man, Wesley Snipes, and Dwayne Johnson was trying to usher in a new era and a new direction for superheroes, but because these racists over at DC don't like the idea of having another black man go out here and be the one to set the direction and the tone. No, they want to go out here and they want to be the ones to do things. But when they do things, we get garbage like Man of Steel, we get Batman v Superman, we get just a jumbled mess. But they don't want the black man to come in and fix the mess. No, I say let them have their mess. And that's what many black comic fans and black fantasy fans need to do. Okay, you want to go out here and have your DC Cinematic Universe. Well, Sean's dollars are going to stay in his pocket, because I don't like the way these racists are going out here and actively showing me that they're racist by the way they've treated Ray Fisher and the way they've treated Dwayne Johnson. And what other also irritates me is how many in fandom are saying, oh, Dwayne Johnson is the bad guy. But when I look at Dwayne Johnson's actions, no, I don't see how he's the bad guy. I see the dysfunction of Warner Brothers running, and the racism at Warner Brothers running rampant, because Warner Brothers has basically been in free fall as related to the DC Comics property ever since they hired Dan Didio back in 2002, and he began creating this dark and dreary story model, which led to the decline in sales at DC Comics, and also led to the many of the movies in the DC the New 52 winding up in decline, and then also led to the movies of the DC extended universe winding up not performing as well. No, nobody wants to see the white guys who created the dark and dreary model of storytelling that alienated comic fans way back as far as 2002, led to the New 52 reboot, which led to the decline in DC's merchandising sales, because I was there going out here seeing the DC Universe Classics figures rotting on the shelf, and the other lines that Mattel was launching rotting on the shelf, DC Direct figures and not moving at all, and then seeing these movies not perform very well. But everybody wants to sit there and make Dwayne Johnson a guy who was just on a movie that came out last year, he's the bad guy. But the white guys who have been running DC straight into the ground for the last couple of decades, no, they're not the problem over at Warner Brothers. And again, just shows me how there are a lot of racists working at Warner Brothers, and how, what's even more troubling to me, there are a lot of racists in fandom who show me that they're Fairweather fans, because when Black Adam came out in October, many of these same people were sitting there praising Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Many of them were saying, oh, he's taking the DC cinematic universe in a new direction. And many of them were celebrating him for getting Henry Cavill to come back and put on that Superman suit and go out here and set things up. But no, they want to say he's the bad guy. And again, just showing me the racism that's in fandom, because they want it to be white guys who are the heroes in front of the camera and behind the camera, and they can't stand the idea of a black man being the one who goes out here and revives the DC cinematic universe. No, and as I see it at this point, this is where as a comic fan who's been a fan for over 30 years, I have to say, you know what, I'm done with Warner Brothers, I'm done with DC Comics, I'm done with DC cinematic properties. I mean, if they don't want to go out here and help themselves, then you can just let them go out here and fall into the abyss and go bankrupt, just like Disney almost did back in the 70s. Because when somebody goes out here and actively tries to help you, like Dwayne Johnson did, and you turn away from the help, that is when people throw up their hands and let you hit rock bottom. Because when I look at Warner Brothers, they are basically like a drug addict or an alcoholic. And when people try to help you, like Dwayne Johnson did by getting Henry Cavill to come back to the Superman role, and tries to work with you towards getting him back for another Superman movie, and instead of you taking the help, you decide to turn away from the help, that's when you turn away from that individual, and that's when you let that individual just fall until they hit rock bottom. Because at that point, that's when that person doesn't want any help. No, that person wants to continue on that dysfunctional course that they're on. And when I look at Warner Brothers, they basically want to continue on the same dysfunctional course that they're on, even though that course is taking them on a road to failure. They still want to go out here and still try to find a way to launch a Flash movie with a toxic actor like this guy Ezra Miller, and they want to continue supporting a toxic actress like an Amber Heard. And again, this is the behavior of an addict, and it looks like to me that your Warner Brothers isn't just like an alcoholic addicted to alcohol or a drug addict addicted to drugs. No, they're addicted to white supremacy, and they want to be the supreme ones. They want to be the ones who have all the ideas. They want to be the ones who have all the power, but they don't understand that as a business that sells products, it's the customer that has the power. And as a customer myself, if I see a business participating in toxic behavior, then I have a right to walk away from that business, and I can just let that company just go where it wants to go, because it's clear to me that, again, your Warner Brothers doesn't want to provide the fans with quality entertainment like they did in 1989 when I was in high school and the first Batman came out. No, all they want to do is continue doing their movies their way. And since you want to do your movies your way, I can find my money to spend on some other entertainment on other platforms like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and I can leave your Warner Brothers DC superheroes movies, comics, and properties far behind. Because if somebody like Dwayne Johnson, again, comes to you and tries to work with you for over 14 years trying to help you get a Black Adam concept to the screen, and you still don't want to get your stuff together, then that's on you at that point. Because again, I can't blame Dwayne Johnson for but so much. I mean, Black Adam's big problem was not the action or the actors. No, it was the screenplay. and it was the problems with the screenplay were possibly due to Warner Brothers executives, and that was the big problem with Black Adam. But for you to go out here and disrespect Dwayne Johnson the way that you did shows me, again, that this is racial, because you're going to go out here and do Dwayne Johnson, make him the villain. He's not the villain as I see it, because, again, he got out here, got Henry Cavill to come back to Warner Brothers. He walked away from a job that he had as The Witcher, and instead of you going out here and working with him, you give him his walking papers, disrespect him, and that's, again, something that's just not done in the entertainment business, because when somebody comes to you on an oral contract, you're supposed to go out here and respect those terms, because this man walked away from a job to come to you, but instead, because a black man brought him to you, you couldn't stand the idea of a black man bringing him to you. So you want to get rid of everybody and then talk about, oh, we want to make a new, younger Superman. No, that's the same type of talk I hear from a lot of these racists and these females out here. Whenever they see somebody who knows what they're doing, they want to come out here and say, well, we want to do something different, when the something different you want to do is hot garbage, because the reason why you want to do it is because you're scared of the whole idea of a black man doing something better than you. And that's the whole thing that irritates me the most as related to this whole situation with Dwayne Johnson, is that they see that Dwayne Johnson knew the business better than they did, and that's why they wanted to get him out of the business. Again, this is no different than a black man when he's on one of these jobs. They want to get the black man out because they're afraid that the black man can do better than they can, and they want to make the black man the bad guy at the end of the day. And that's what they're doing to your Dwayne Johnson. And I hope that he sees that this is about him being black, because, again, this is the same treatment that they gave Ray Fisher. They called him a cryborg, but when I look at the big picture as related to Warner Brothers and how they treated both Dwayne Johnson, a box office star, and Ray Fisher, a guy who basically was going to be the cornerstone of Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's clear to me that there's a racist culture at Warner Brothers, and that they don't want anybody black being in any sort of power position. And since they don't want anybody black in a power position, then we can take our tangible, that it doesn't make sense for us to take our tangible dollars and keep supporting DC Comics properties, because as I see it, DC at this point is dysfunctional to the point where I have no problem walking away from DC intellectual properties and letting the new DC cinematic universe fall to the same dysfunctional position that the old one was, because at this point, as I see it, your DC is on a state of decline, and they're going to hit rock bottom sooner rather than later. Now, if you want to pick up my first comic, Easting No Good Deed, you can find it on Kindle for 99 cents. And if you want to pick up my action-packed fantasy fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the Easting series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, and my vampire novel Eternal Night and the Thetas, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And you can also find my books at other online booksellers like Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more videos about comics, science fiction, and fantasy, and superhero projects, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Give in to temptation and pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback. Those who refuse the gift of eternal life are condemned to wander in the darkness of eternal night. Get your copy